Hi Filipinas and greedy world, how are you Ilaster? So for today's video, we are here at Rockwell Power Plant to attend COL Financial Mid-Year Market Outlook for 2025. So let's go!
We'll be dedicating one whole segment, right, for experts topics for today. So that will be in the second segment, and the third segment, another deep dive into your most requested stocks.
Said that the Philippines is going to be relatively resilient from the what's happening globally, but it's like we're not. And then next earnings growth and the numerous threats facing the different sectors. So can we go to them one by one? Okay. So FDIs, remember I talked about create more law, and they were saying that they were anticipating 4 trillion pesos worth of investments, which kind of surprised me because 4 trillion is a lot of money. But you know, during the first quarter, this is a number that I was closely monitoring, and instead of seeing that 4 trillion come in, we actually saw FDIs going down by 41.1%, which is definitely disappointing because we did more jobs, which in turn would have boosted consumer spending. Okay, then let's go to the next slide, which is on the economy. So I guess if you recall what happened in the first half, I think one of the most important developments is the election of Trump and of course his trade policies. So remember, on Liberation Day, he came out with his reciprocal tariffs and the markets fell because, of course, that would, negatively affect economic growth. And people were so bearish, but surprisingly, as of today, parang nawala na lahat, di ba? Just because instead of the huge tariffs, he said, okay, let's just do 10%. And then, di ba, he kept on changing his policies. But that said, objectively speaking, let's go to the real world, not, not Wall Street, not the market, not the financial world, which says everything's all right. If you own the business and, you don't know whether, the 90-day pause is coming next week. So we don't know what's going to happen, if we're going to have the reciprocal tariff or not. Okay? So what would happen is you don't know what to do, and you will be a little bit gun shy when it comes to expanding your business and hiring more people, even if you are in the Philippines, because I think what we can see is so far, even though we are relatively isolated, meron pa rin siyang impact. So let's go to the next slide. We looked at this survey that came out of the BSP, checking the business sentiment index. And one of the questions they ask is, what are your plans in terms of expanding next quarter? What are your plans in terms of hiring people? And you can see that, because of the uncertainty, their plans have been put on hold. So kahit paano, meron pa rin, 'di ba? Kasi parang yung sagot nila, so why are you not expanding as much as you can, or why have you turned more, I guess, bearish, more conservative? And they highlighted the potential. They don't know, but they said potentially there could be a negative impact of higher US tariff rates. So no expansion muna. Status quo tayo, tapos medyo let's see how things turn out, and we expand as needed. And let's go to the next slide. Then yun na nga, I think si boss highlighted, naiwanan na naman tayo. Oo, totoo, kasi unfortunately nga, with this type of earnings growth, earnings grew, but exciting, hindi ka mapapabili kasi parang recovery. See, it's just a 6.4% growth, which is single digit. Not exciting. So it doesn't excite investors to come back in. Okay, that's why. And if you look at the various sectors, what stood out or was kind of surprising for me is that the telco is actually down 5.8%. And power, which is supposed to be receiving 8.3%. So kind of surprising, right? So I think that's the reason why, or that's one of the reasons why the market didn't go up as much we would have wanted it to be. And finally, let's go to the last one. There are numerous they're facing threats. For the property sector, sa totoo lang yung property, nag-grow yung earnings Pero it's one of the worst performing sectors because there's an oversupply in offices and oversupply in residential. And if you look at the disclosures of the companies, they talk about the take-up sales still being negative. And in fact, some only started half of last year registering negative take-up sales. Kasi parang aware na yung mga tao na hala, mahina pala yung market. So hindi na sila nagmamadali. And then the telco sector, one of the things we kind of noticed is that Dito seems to be having some competitive impact finally because the market share has increased already to around 6% of revenues. And in a market where revenues are just growing by 3%, a 6% revenue share already has an impact. And then recently we have the Conectadong, we mean open access and potentially more competition coming in. And lastly, you have the gaming bill that may materialize, and it would regulate the use of e-wallets for top-ups, which both Globe and PLDT have exposure to. And finally, the gaming sector, which I'm sure is the most controversial right now. First of all, we've warned investors about this. There's increasing competition because it's okay. I think DigiPlus earnings in the full year last year almost doubled first quarter earnings as well, no? Parang unstoppable, But anyway, so because of that, they are attracting more competition. We have like as of December 60 license holders na yata. And then the BSP already said that it wants to prohibit banks and EMIs from presenting offerings associated with gambling activities. And then the proposed gaming bill, prohibits the linking of e-wallets, but of course we don't know what that means. Increasing the top-up requirements to 5,000 peso. Okay, 5,000 pesos is a lot of money. So I think the average revenue per user or yung size nung gumagamit ng e-gaming is only 1,000 pesos. So 5,000 is a lot of money. And it will, of course, negatively affect the business. Then regulate advertising. So yun na nga, anecdotally, if you go through EDSA, I'm sure you'll notice that most of the ads you see are now gaming ads. And even if you go to, parang mga websites and stuff, there's like a lot of gaming ads. Yeah, and stricter implementation of KYC requirements, and even increasing the age to 21. So that would make it a lot more difficult. So in that respect, parang marami pa ring mga obstacles facing the market.
What are you seeing now, technically?
Okay, so, sure if you have the slide up already, but the index managed to be able to calm itself since the beginning of the year. It was locked in a big range. I'll show you that later, but we've had the market try to make a bottom recently, and we seem to be in a rally phase. But in answer to your question, I didn't see much change, although there were some changes that created the volatility inside the big band of that particular index. So our index right now just recently bounced through 6,200. It was a scary low because it was at that time when the war in Israel and Iran took place, and the index just actually broke a small consolidation, which at that time, admittedly, I did feel some pressure at that time because of the break. I didn't want that to come closer to the low. But fortunately, 6,200 did hold, and we saw the market make a recovery since. So I will just continue to be able to press on the range trade offer that we still do have, but normally inside a very big sideways market, you're going to get very mixed movements. And the reason our index is not climbing as against some other Asian countries which are doing exorbitantly well is really because we have a very mixed situation.
Strong issues. So an active investor made a lot of money during the first half. If you look at the index, it was actually up by 0.9% in the first half. Well, of course, it's 0.9 is nothing great, but it's still better than down 2.5. You actually had more gainers than losers, 144 versus 117. And you can see here, this was not the whole list, but those companies at least which I could identify na may reason naman kung bakit sila umakyat. You could see here pa lang from this list, more than 20 names that delivered double-digit earnings, share price appreciation, which can be not surprising. So sudden, oh, ang ganda pala ng earnings. And then the share price will go up substantially. So essentially that happened to a lot of companies in the first half. Then of course, gold prices went up substantially. So you had a lot of gold mining stocks going up significantly like Philex, APX, OGP. Yun nga, strong earnings growth. You had the gaming companies like Plus coming out with the strong earnings and consumer companies turning around, showing strong recovery. Kasi nga we said consumer spending recovered because of falling inflation, which, we said it naman in advance, so we could have made money there. And then a lot of them gave surprise cash dividend declarations that were much larger. So, that acted as a way to unlock the value of, the cheap valuations.
But some issues will climb and some issues may not even come down, and you have to be prepared for that. Index, so we got to be able to look at the shorter term version because we know the longer term is we're stuck in a big range. So what do we have in the short term? In the short term, we do have some short term upsides, okay? And that's what we're going to try to bank on selectively. So you see the index right now, it seems to be composing itself in a small little range. It recently just bottomed out from 6,200. And I'm hoping that there's this period in the second half of the year, normally closer to August. The second part will be about somewhere between October, November. These tend to be generally advancing months rather than corrective months. September, normally, we normally see pressure there, but every once in a while you might see an aberration. Just like last year, we actually saw a strong September here. And obviously the ones in red are the one time showing short-term declines. And so what do we need to see? Aside from that index breaking, what you need to see in this chart, more of those reds become blues, and more of those blues become greens, right? And until you see that, then the problem with the broad market is it will stay really inert. So you really have to be very much a stock picker. I'd say your choices will be somewhere in the middle or even to the green right now. If you guys are going to red, you better have a longer term mindset because it might take a little longer time to get what you want. But of course, your argument might say, maybe if I'm buying those reds, the potential upsides can be big. That's true. But remember, when you make time over money, you can say, hey, I made 10%, but 10% in 1 year is different than 10% in 2 or 3 years. Okay, so understand the difference. So try to position yourself a little bit where the action's almost there getting better rather than, bottom fishing in something that might take still a while before they can recover. We're looking at higher lows for the property because if not, we're not going to go up, right? So that's quite critical. So traders really have to be watchful that you're going to see channels that will go up. So that means you're going to be going up like this, snaking up rather than boom, 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 going up. That's not the environment we're in. So do not chase prices. Okay, you wait for prices to come back down to support and you buy them off the rebounds. Okay, please be careful about extraordinary advances. And many times they're not going to be
Consistent.
doable to maintain that for a great length of time. And I think some of you have learned what gravity can feel like in certain issues, right?
Thank you for watching, A-listers. Please like, share, and subscribe. Later!